The darkness of space held no mercy for the dying fleet. Commander Kael'thas stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the emergency lights flicker across the control panels. His four-fingered hands gripped the command rail until his knuckles turned white beneath his gray skin. Around him, his crew worked desperately to restore systems that refused to respond. "Life support at 40%, called out his second officer. "We have maybe 3 days before it fails completely." Kael'thas felt his chest tighten. 3 days. The Vorath Empire's nearest rescue fleet was at least 15 days away. He had already sent the distress signal, though every instinct screamed against it. The Vorath did not ask for help. They were conquerors, warriors, rulers of 200 star systems. They did not beg, but they were dying. The quantum shockwave had come from nowhere. One moment, the fleet had been traveling through the Kepler Verge on a routine patrol. The next moment, reality itself seemed to tear apart. The wave had passed through all 23 ships like a ghost, leaving their hulls intact but destroying every critical system. Engines dead, weapons offline, communications barely functional. Science Officer Mirren approached the command platform. Her silver eyes held the same fear that Kael'thas felt but refused to show. "Commander, I have completed the analysis," she said quietly. "The shockwave was not natural. Someone created it, a weapon. Yes, but not aimed at us specifically. I believe we encountered the edge effect of a test firing. Whatever created this was meant to be even more powerful." Kael'thas felt cold anger replace his fear. To die in battle was honorable. To die as collateral damage from someone's experiment was insulting beyond measure. "How many casualties?" he asked. 47 dead across the fleet. 312 injured. The Crimson Talon took the worst damage. Their reactor is destabilizing. Before Kael'thas could respond, the communications officer's console erupted with alerts. "Commander, new contacts. 3 ships just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system." Every Vorath on the bridge tensed. Were these the ones who had attacked them? Coming to finish the job? "Battle stations," Kael'thas ordered, then paused. "Wait, we have no weapons. Send me the ship profiles." The display showed 3 vessels. They were not military configurations. One was clearly a carrier of some kind, large and blocky. Another bristled with mechanical arms and equipment bays. The third was smaller, sleeker, with weapons but not the heavy armament of a warship. "Sir, we are receiving a transmission. Multiple frequencies. They are broadcasting in 17 different languages." "Play it." A voice filled the bridge. It spoke in perfect Vorath, though the accent was strange. "Attention, disabled vessels. This is the Terran Rescue Coordination Service ship Nightingale. We have received your distress signal. We are here to provide emergency assistance. Please respond with your status and immediate needs. We are prepared to render aid." Silence fell across the bridge. "Terran?" Mirren whispered. "Humans." Kael'thas felt his blood pressure rise. Humans. The species that had refused to submit when the Vorath Empire had first encountered them 30 years ago. The species that had fought them to a stalemate and forced a grudging ceasefire. The species the Empire considered barely civilized, too emotional, too chaotic. "They dare to approach us?" Kael'thas growled. "Do they think we are so weak we need their pity?" "Sir," the communications officer said carefully, "our distress signal was automatic. They may have simply responded to protocol. Send a message. Tell them we require no assistance. Tell them to leave this system immediately." The message was sent. For a moment, Kael'thas thought they would comply. Then the human voice returned. "Nightingale to Vorath Fleet. We understand your position. However, our sensor readings indicate you have approximately 72 hours before life support failure across your fleet. We calculate your Empire's rescue vessels cannot reach you in less than 14 days. We cannot, in good conscience, depart while sentient beings are in mortal danger. We will begin stabilization operations on your most critical vessels." Nightingale out. "The audacity," Kael'thas roared. "They ignore our command." But even as he spoke, he watched the human ships move into formation. They were not attacking. They were scanning each Vorath vessel methodically, moving from one to the next. Mirren stepped closer. "Commander, what if they are correct about the timeline? We are Vorath. We do not accept charity from lesser species. Even if refusing means death?" Kael'thas had no answer. He watched the human ships continue their careful work. Part of him wanted to order an attack, but they had no weapons. Part of him wanted to maintain pride, but he could hear the failing life support systems throughout his ship. Everywhere, crew members struggled to breathe as the air grew stale. Hours passed. The human ships continued scanning and transmitting offers of assistance. Each time Kael'thas refused. Then the Crimson Talon's reactor reached critical status. "Commander," the communications officer shouted. "The Talon is declaring an emergency. Reactor breach in 8 minutes. Captain Vexenor is ordering evacuation, but their shuttle bay is damaged. They cannot launch. 200 Vorath on that ship, 200 lives." Kael'thas opened his mouth to issue orders, but he had no orders to give. They had no ships that could reach the Talon in time. No equipment to stabilize a reactor breach. "Sir, the humans are moving." On the display, the ship called Good Samaritan was accelerating toward the Crimson Talon at reckless speed. Small craft were launching from its bay, dozens of them. "They are hailing the Talon directly," the communications officer reported. "They say they are coming to extract the crew." "Captain Vexner will never allow alien soldiers aboard his ship," Mirren said. They watched in tense silence. The human small craft reached the Talon and attached to the hull. Moments later, cutting torches began burning through the armor plating. "They are boarding by force," Kael'thas said quietly, "but not to attack." Through the transmitted video feeds from the Talon, Kael'thas saw human figures in heavy protective suits pouring through the breaches they had created. They carried equipment, medical supplies, and stretchers. Vorath crew members, overcome by radiation and panic, were being physically carried to the small craft. One human, working near the failing reactor, took a heavy dose of radiation while sealing a coolant leak. Kael'thas watched the human stagger but continue working until a colleague dragged him away. Another human took his place immediately. 6 minutes to reactor breach, Mirren counted down. 4 minutes. 2 minutes. The last human team was still inside. 1 minute. The final small craft detached from the Talon and fired its engines at maximum thrust. 5 seconds later, the Crimson Talon's reactor exploded in a brief, bright flash. The destroyer was gone, but 198 of its 200 crew members were safe aboard the human rescue vessels. Captain Vexnor's transmission came through to the Eternal Dominion. The tough old warrior's voice was shaking. "Commander, the humans, they saved us. One of their people, a female doctor, she shielded my engineer with her own body when debris fell. She was injured protecting him. I do not understand this. Why would they do this?" Kael'thas stared at the display showing the human ships. 2 questions burned in his mind. Questions that shook everything he believed about the universe. Who were these humans, and what did they want? Sarah Chen studied the tactical display in the command center of the Nightingale. 23 disabled alien warships floated in the void like broken toys. Her team had been working for 18 hours straight, and they had barely made a dent in the crisis. "Status report," she said, rubbing her tired eyes. Lieutenant Park looked up from his console. "We have stabilized life support on 7 vessels. Medical teams are treating casualties on 4 more. Engineering teams are working on the flagship's power systems. But Commander, the Vorath leadership still refuses to cooperate. They will not give us access codes or technical specifications. Every ship we board, we have to force our way in." Sarah nodded slowly. She had expected this. The Vorath were proud, fierce. They saw asking for help as weakness. She understood pride. What she did not understand was choosing death over accepting a hand up. "What about casualties on our side?" 12 injured. 3 seriously. Dr. Harris took a broken arm when a bulkhead collapsed on the Talon. Engineer Rodriguez has radiation sickness from the reactor work. He'll recover, but he needs treatment. Sarah felt the familiar weight of command. Every person under her authority was someone's child, someone's parent, someone's friend. She had sent them into danger to save aliens who did not even want their help. Keep them rotating. "No one works more than 6 hours straight. I want everyone sharp." A new voice cut through the command center. It was coming from the main communications array. "This is Commander Kael'thas of the Vorath vessel Eternal Dominion. I demand to speak with whoever leads this operation." Sarah straightened her uniform and nodded to the communications officer. "Put him through, visual." The screen flickered to life. The Vorath commander was tall, over 2 meters, with gray skin and amber eyes that burned with barely controlled anger. He wore a military uniform covered in medals and insignia. Everything about his posture screamed authority and pride. "I am Rescue Coordinator Sarah Chen of the Terran Rescue Service. How can I help you, Commander?" "You can leave," Kael'thas said bluntly. "Your presence is not requested or required. We are waiting for our own fleet to arrive." Sarah kept her voice calm and professional. "Commander, with respect, your own fleet cannot reach you in time. We have calculated your life support will fail in approximately 54 hours. Your rescue fleet, according to our intelligence, is at least 12 days away. Your calculations are irrelevant. We do not need human assistance. Then why did your distress beacon broadcast across half the sector? Kael'thas's jaw tightened. That was an automatic system. Not by our choice. Sarah leaned forward. Commander, I understand this is difficult. I understand you do not trust us. Our people have fought before. But right now, thousands of your crew are dying. I have medical facilities, engineering equipment, food, water, and air. I have trained people ready to help. Please, let us save your people. We are not your concern, human. Actually, you are. The moment you broadcast that distress signal, you became everyone's concern. That is how this works. When someone is drowning, you pull them out of the water. You do not ask their permission first. Kael'thas stood silent for a long moment. Sarah could see the conflict in his alien features. Pride warring with pragmatism, honor fighting against survival. If we accept your aid, he said slowly. What do you want in return? Sarah blinked. In return? Do not play games. Nothing is free in this galaxy. What is your price? Technology? Territory? Political concessions? For a moment, Sarah did not know what to say. Then understanding dawned, and with it sadness. The Vorath could not imagine someone helping without an ulterior motive. They lived in a universe of transactions and power plays. Commander Kael'thas, we want nothing. We are here because you needed help and we could provide it. That is all. Impossible. No one acts without self-interest. Humans do. We learned the hard way that we are all connected. We nearly destroyed ourselves centuries ago fighting over differences. We learned that survival means cooperation. We learned that when someone falls, you help them up, because one day it might be you who falls. Kael'thas stared at her with something like disbelief. You are either lying or insane. Maybe a bit of both, Sarah said with a tired smile. But right now I have 15 medical teams ready to treat your wounded. I have engineers who can restore your power systems. I have supply ships bringing food and water. All I need is your cooperation. Give us access. Let us help. And if I refuse, then we will do what we can from the outside. We will stabilize systems remotely. We will provide supplies to ships that accept them. But many of your people will die who did not have to. Can you live with that, Commander? The transmission ended abruptly. Kael'thas had cut the connection. Lieutenant Park looked at Sarah with concern. Do you think he will cooperate? I do not know. Pride is a powerful force. Hours passed. The human teams continued their work, focusing on ships whose captains were willing to accept help. Slowly, reluctantly, some Vorath officers began to cooperate. They were not grateful, not friendly, but they were pragmatic enough to accept survival. Dr. James Okoro worked in the temporary medical bay set up aboard the Nightingale. He had treated 47 Vorath patients in the last 12 hours. Most were confused by his presence. Some were hostile. One had tried to attack him before collapsing from weakness. Now he was treating a young Vorath female with severe burns. She watched him with suspicious eyes as he applied synthetic skin grafts. Why do you do this? She asked suddenly in broken but understandable English. James did not look up from his work. Because you are hurt and I am a doctor, but I am Vorath. We are enemies. Right now, you are a patient. That is all that matters. I do not understand humans. James smiled slightly. Join the club. We do not always understand ourselves either. He finished the bandaging and stepped back. There, you should heal well. Try not to move too much for the next few days. The young Vorath looked at her bandaged arm. Then at James. Thank you, she said quietly, as if the words were difficult. You are welcome. In the engineering section of the Eternal Dominion, Chief Engineer Maria Santos was arguing with Science Officer Mirren about the best way to restore the ship's power grid. If we reroute through the secondary conduits, we can bypass the damaged sections, Maria explained, pointing at the holographic schematic. Mirren shook her head. Those conduits cannot handle the power load. They will overload within hours. Not if we regulate the flow here and here. Maria highlighted 2 junction points. We spread the load across multiple pathways. That is, actually clever, Mirren admitted. We do not use that technique. We prefer centralized power distribution, which is great until something breaks. Redundancy saves lives. They worked in silence for a while, making adjustments to the ship's systems. Gradually, power levels began to climb. Lights that had been dark for days flickered to life. You are very skilled, Mirren said finally. For a human, Maria laughed. Thanks, I think. I mean no offense. I simply expected less competence. What did you expect? We are not that different, you know. We all breathe, eat, sleep. We all want to survive. We all want our lives to mean something. Mirren considered this. Perhaps. But humans are strange. You come to save enemies. Former enemies, Maria corrected. And yeah, maybe we are strange. But being strange is not always bad. Throughout the fleet, similar scenes played out. Humans and Vorath working side by side out of necessity. Slowly, reluctantly, the barriers began to crack. On the third day after the humans arrived, Commander Kael'thas made a decision. He opened a channel to the Nightingale. Coordinator Chen. Commander, what can I do for you? You may send your teams to the Eternal Dominion. We will provide access codes and technical assistance. Sarah felt relief wash through her. Thank you, Commander. That will help tremendously. Do not thank me. This changes nothing between our peoples. I understand. But your crew will live. That is what matters. After the transmission ended, Kael'thas stood alone on his bridge. Through the viewport, he could see human ships moving between the disabled Vorath vessels like worker bees tending a hive. He did not understand these humans, but he was beginning to think that perhaps understanding was less important than survival. And perhaps, just perhaps, the universe was more complicated than he had believed. The temporary habitat module attached to the side of the Eternal Dominion looked like a metal flower growing from the warship's hull. Inside, 300 Vorath crew members from damaged vessels ate, slept and recovered while repairs continued on their ships. Maria Santos floated through the zero-gravity section, checking the environmental seals. Beside her, Mirren made notes on a datapad, still not entirely comfortable with human technology. I still do not understand your approach to engineering, Myron said. This habitat is assembled from standard modules, yes? Right. We can configure them dozens of different ways depending on what we need. But it is so temporary, not elegant. A proper facility would be custom-built for efficiency. Maria grinned. Sure, if you have 6 months and unlimited resources. We do not. We work with what we have and make it good enough. Perfect is the enemy of done. That is a very human philosophy. It keeps people alive. That is all the philosophy I need. They reached the medical section where Dr. Okoro was conducting rounds. A Vorath male with a bandaged leg watched him approach with guarded eyes. How are you feeling today? James asked, checking the patient's vital signs on his scanner. Better, the Vorath admitted grudgingly. The pain is less. Good, the bone is healing well. You should be able to walk without assistance in another 3 days. James made notes in his medical log. Any trouble with the medication? No, it works effectively. The Vorath hesitated. Doctor, may I ask a question? Of course, why do you care? About whether my leg heals correctly? James looked up from his datapad. Because if I do a bad job, you will walk with a limp for the rest of your life. I do not want that. But I am not human. You are still a person. That is what matters. The Vorath fell silent, clearly struggling with this concept. Finally, he said, You are very strange beings. James smiled. So I have been told. In another section of the habitat, a group of human volunteers had set up a recreation area. They brought games, books, music, and entertainment devices. At first, the Vorath ignored these offerings. Then curiosity began to overcome suspicion. A young Vorath engineer named Sortek watched a human technician named David play something called chess. The black and white pieces moved across the board in patterns Sortek did not understand. What is the purpose of this activity? Sortek asked. David looked up. Purpose? It is a game. It is fun, but what do you gain from it? Entertainment. Mental exercise. A way to pass time. Sortek sat down across from David. Teach me. For the next hour, David explained the rules of chess while Sortek learned with surprising speed. When they finally played a full game, Sortek lost badly but seemed intrigued rather than frustrated. This game requires thinking many moves ahead, Sortek observed. Exactly. Like life, really. Humans play games to learn about life, sometimes. Sometimes we just play games because they are fun. Not everything needs a deeper meaning. Sortek considered this. The Vorath Empire does not emphasize recreation. We are taught that idle time is wasted time. David leaned back in his chair. That sounds exhausting. How do you relax? Relax? Yeah, unwind, let go of stress. We do not. We focus on duty. David shook his head. No wonder you guys are so tense all the time. You need hobbies, man. This conversation was repeated across the habitat in various forms. Humans and Vorath, forced together by circumstance, slowly began to see each other as individuals rather than stereotypes. On the bridge of the Nightingale, Sarah Chen received a concerning report from her intelligence officer. Coordinator, we have detected unusual energy signatures at the edge of the system. They match the quantum weapon that disabled the Vorath fleet. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. Are you saying someone is targeting this area again? Possibly. Or they are conducting more tests. Either way, we should be prepared for trouble. Sarah immediately contacted Maria and Myron. I need you two to analyze something. We think the quantum weapon might activate again. In the engineering bay of the Eternal Dominion, Maria and Myron pored over the data. Maria pulled up comparative readings from the original attack, while Myron cross-referenced them with Vorath military intelligence. This is definitely artificial, Myron said. The energy signature matches Clithran technology. Clithran? Maria asked. A rival empire, expansionist, aggressive, they have been testing new weapons for years. Myron's expression darkened. If they created this quantum disruption device, it means they have achieved a significant breakthrough. And if they detect that the Vorath fleet is disabled here, they will come to finish the job, Maria finished. They brought their findings to Commander Kael'thas. The Vorath leader listened with growing anger. The Clithran, of course. He slammed his fist on the command console. This was not an accident. This was an attack. Probably a test that you stumbled into, Maria said. Wrong place, wrong time. And now we are helpless. No weapons. Limited mobility. If they send a battle fleet, we will be slaughtered. Sarah Chen's face appeared on the communication screen. Commander, we need to discuss defensive options. What defensive options? We have none. The Steadfast is a frigate with moderate weaponry. Some of your ships have functioning weapons systems, even if engines are down. We can coordinate a defense. Kael'thas laughed bitterly. One human frigate and a handful of disabled warships against a Clithran fleet? We would be destroyed. Maybe. But we are not going to abandon you. You should. This is not your fight. You are under our protection. That makes it our fight. Kael'thas stared at the human woman on the screen. You would die for us. After everything between our peoples? We would die trying to save you, Sarah corrected. There is a difference. We do not give up on people just because the odds are bad. Around the bridge, Vorath officers exchanged glances. This made no sense by their logic. The humans should withdraw, save themselves, leave the Vorath to their fate. That was what any rational species would do. But humans, apparently, were not rational. Over the following days, a strange transformation occurred. Human volunteers continued to arrive in small civilian ships bringing supplies and support. Among them was a man named Marcus Webb. Marcus had lost his wife and daughter to a Vorath raid 8 years ago. When the rescue mission was announced, something inside him had broken open. He could have stayed home, could have celebrated the Vorath suffering. Instead, he volunteered. Now he worked in the supply distribution center, organizing food shipments for the alien crew. A young Vorath female approached him nervously. Excuse me, I am looking for medical supplies for my brother. He is injured. Marcus checked his inventory. What does he need? She listed several items. Marcus gathered them and handed them over. As she turned to leave, he said quietly, I hope your brother recovers. She paused and looked back at him. Something in his eyes made her ask, Why are you here? Humans and Vorath have been enemies. Marcus was silent for a long moment. Because someone has to break the cycle. Might as well be me. He did not tell her about his lost family. Did not burden her with his grief. He simply did his job and hoped that somewhere, somehow, this mattered. In the recreation area, David and Sortek played another chess game. This time, Sortek won. You are learning fast, David said admiringly. You are a good teacher. Sortek reset the pieces. David, may I ask something personal? Sure. Do all humans believe in helping others as you do? David thought about this. Not all. We are not perfect. We have people who are selfish, cruel, hateful. We have made terrible mistakes. But I think most of us try to be better than our worst impulses. We try to build instead of destroy, to heal instead of harm. Even when it costs you, especially then. The easy choices do not define us. The hard ones do. Sortek moved a chess piece slowly. I think I'm beginning to understand humans. You are idealists. Maybe. Or maybe we are just stubborn. We keep trying even when we should give up. That is either very brave or very foolish, David grinned. Often both. By the end of the second week, something remarkable had happened. The Vorath fleet was operational enough to survive. Most ships had basic life support power and mobility. The crisis was passing, but more importantly, relationships had formed. Humans and Vorath had worked together, eaten together, talked together. They had shared fears and hopes. They had seen each other not as enemies, but as people trying to survive in a difficult universe. Commander. Kael'thas stood on his repaired bridge and looked at the human ships still working tirelessly to help his fleet. He thought about his beliefs regarding strength and weakness, about pride and pragmatism, about what truly made a civilization great. His worldview had been shaken, and he was beginning to think that maybe, just maybe, that was a good thing. The warning came at 0400 hours shipboard time. Sarah Chen was pulled from sleep by emergency alarms. She reached the command center of the Nightingale still pulling on her uniform jacket. Lieutenant Park was already at his station, face pale. Report, Sarah ordered. Multiple contacts dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 15 ships. Configuration matches Clitheran warships. Park brought up the tactical display. They are forming an attack pattern. Sarah felt ice in her veins. 15 warships against one human frigate and a fleet of barely functional Vorath vessels. This was not a battle. It was an execution. Wake everyone. Battle stations. Get me Captain Foster on the Steadfast. The display flickered to show Captain Diana Foster, commander of the escort frigate. She was a veteran of 3 wars, with gray streaks in her dark hair and eyes that had seen too much death. I see them, Diana said without preamble. We are outnumbered and outgunned. Can we hold them? For maybe 10 minutes if we are lucky. Sarah, you need to evacuate the rescue ships. Get the civilians out of here. And leave the Vorath. They are dead already. Do not throw away more lives. Sarah shook her head. We do not abandon people in need. Start evacuating the most vulnerable Vorath to our ships. If we have to run, we take as many as we can carry. That is suicide. That is the job. On the Eternal Dominion, alarms woke the crew from exhausted sleep. Commander Kael'thas reached his bridge to find his officers frantically working to power up weapon systems that were barely functional. Status? He demanded. 7 of our ships have partial weapons, maybe 30% combat effectiveness. The others are defenseless. His tactical officer looked grim. Commander, we cannot win this fight. Kael'thas knew this. Every instinct screamed at him to surrender to spare his crew the slaughter. But surrendering to the Clitheran meant execution anyway. They did not take prisoners. Mirren approached him urgently. Commander, the humans are evacuating our wounded to their ships. What? Coordinator Chen has ordered all rescue vessels to take aboard as many Vorath as possible. She says if they must flee, they will not leave our people behind. Kael'thas felt something crack inside his chest. The humans were preparing to run, but instead of saving only themselves, they were trying to save Vorath crew members. Even now, facing annihilation, they thought of others first. He opened a channel to the Nightingale. Coordinator Chen. Sarah's face appeared tense and focused. Commander, why are you still here? You should have left the moment the Clitheran appeared. We are evacuating your most vulnerable crew first. This is foolish. You will die. Maybe. But we will die doing the right thing. That matters to us. Kael'thas felt shame burn through him. Shame for all the times he had dismissed humans as weak. Shame for his pride that had nearly killed his own people. Shame for not understanding until now what true strength looked like. Coordinator, I have a proposal. The Steadfast cannot defeat the Clitheran fleet alone. But if we coordinate our forces, combine your tactics with our weapons, perhaps we can buy time for the evacuation. Sarah studied him for a moment. You want to fight alongside us? No, I need to fight alongside you. You saved my people. Now let me try to save yours. On the Steadfast, Captain Diana Foster was already planning the defense when she received word of the Vorath cooperation. She immediately contacted the Vorath warships that still had weapons. This is Captain Foster. Here is what we are going to do. The Clitheran will expect you to fight like Vorath fight. Direct, aggressive, head-on. We are not going to do that. We are going to be annoying. The Vorath captains listened as Diana outlined her plan. It was unorthodox, undignified. It involved running away, using debris as cover, firing and retreating, coordinated deception. It was also their only chance. The Clithrin fleet advanced in perfect formation. Their commander, war leader Thexcal, watched the disabled Vorath vessels with satisfaction. This would be a glorious victory. The destruction of an entire Vorath fleet would bring him great honor. Target their flagship first, he ordered. Make them watch their leader die. His weapons officer hesitated. War leader, there are human vessels among them. Even better, we will show the humans what happens to those who aid our enemies. Fire. The Clithrin dreadnought's main cannon charged, but before it could fire, the Steadfast darted forward at full speed, positioning itself between the dreadnought and the Eternal Dominion. What are they doing? Thexcal demanded. That frigate cannot stop our weapon. Captain Diana's voice broadcast across all frequencies. Clithrin Fleet, this is Captain Diana Foster of the Terran ship Steadfast. These vessels are under the protection of the Terran Rescue Service. Any attack on them will be considered an act of war against humanity. Stand down, Thexcal laughed. One frigate threatens an entire fleet. Your species is as foolish as reported. Destroy them. The battle began. The Steadfast's shields flared as the dreadnought's main weapon struck. The frigate shuddered but held position. Simultaneously, 3 Vorath destroyers opened fire on the Clithrin right flank, targeting their engines rather than their heavy armor. All ships, execute pattern Delta, Diana ordered. Keep them confused. Do not let them target effectively. The combined human Vorath force scattered in different directions, firing from unexpected angles. The Steadfast used its superior speed to dart between larger ships, forcing the Clithrin to risk hitting each other if they fired. In the engineering bay, Maria and Mirren worked frantically on a desperate plan. If we can repurpose the quantum signatures from the weapon that disabled us, Mirren explained, we might be able to create a localized disruption field. That would disable our own ships too, Maria pointed out. Yes, but only temporarily. If we calibrate it correctly, we could target just the Clithrin formation. Give them the same shock we received. Can we generate enough power? If we overload the Eternal Dominion's main reactor and channel everything through the sensor array? Mirren did rapid calculations. It would destroy the ship, but it might work. Maria grabbed a communicator. I need to talk to Commander Kael'thas. The battle was not going well. 2 Vorath destroyers were destroyed. The Steadfast shields were failing. Captain Diana had been injured when a console exploded, but she refused to leave her post. Then Maria's proposal reached Kael'thas. He listened in silence as she explained. A weapon that could disable the Clithrin fleet, but it required sacrificing the Eternal Dominion, his flagship, his home for 15 years. Do it, he said without hesitation. Commander, you will need to evacuate, Maria said. The reactor overload will destroy the entire ship. I understand. Begin preparations. The evacuation of the Eternal Dominion began even as Maria and Mirren built their improvised weapon. Crew members filed onto shuttles, their faces showing the pain of leaving their ship behind. Commander Kael'thas stood on his bridge for the last time. Around him, his senior officers prepared to depart. Sir, we must go, his second officer urged. I know. Give me one moment. He looked around the bridge, remembered his first day as commander, remembered victories and defeats. This ship had been his life. Now it would be his legacy. The quantum disruptor activated just as the Clithrin fleet prepared for their final assault. The wave spread outward from the Eternal Dominion, invisible but devastating. Clithrin ships went dark as their systems failed. The mighty dreadnought went silent mid-attack. On the Steadfast, Diana watched in amazement as the enemy fleet became helpless. All ships, target the disabled vessels, she ordered. Aim for weapons and engines. Make them unable to follow when they recover. The counterattack was swift and surgical. Without shields or active defenses, the Clithrin ships were vulnerable. The human and Vorath forces methodically crippled each vessel. Then the Eternal Dominion's reactor went critical. The flagship exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave rocked nearby ships, but the crew had escaped. Kael'thas watched from a shuttle as his ship died to save them all. A young human pilot named Marcus Webb was flying a supply shuttle filled with evacuated Vorath when he detected a missile. One of the Clithrin ships had fired before going offline. The missile was tracking toward a Vorath medical transport filled with wounded. Marcus did not hesitate. He pushed his shuttle's engines to maximum and positioned himself between the missile and the transport. This is Webb. Tell my mom I love her. The missile struck his shuttle. The explosion was brief but absolute. The medical transport survived. 147 wounded Vorath lived because a human who had lost his family to their people chose to save them anyway. In the aftermath, as the Clithran fleet limped away and the humans treated their wounded, Commander Kael'thas floated in a shuttle bay of the Nightingale. Around him, human medics worked to save Vorath and human casualties without distinction. Sarah Chen found him there. "Your flagship. I am sorry," she said quietly. "Do not be. It died with honor, and it saved many lives." He looked at her. That pilot, Marcus Webb, did he have family? A mother, sister? He lost his wife and daughter in a Vorath raid years ago. Kael'thas closed his eyes. And yet he saved us. That was who he was. That was who we try to be. I do not understand humans, but I am grateful for them. Sarah smiled sadly. Sometimes not understanding is okay. Sometimes we just need to help each other survive. 3 weeks after the battle, the Vorath fleet was ready to return home. The ships were patched, functional, and capable of faster-than-light travel. Crews had recovered from their injuries. Life support systems ran smoothly. The crisis was over, but everything had changed. Commander Kael'thas stood in the hangar bay of the Nightingale for the formal departure ceremony. Beside him stood his senior officers. Across from them, Sarah Chen and her command staff. Between them, human and Vorath crew members who had worked together for nearly a month. The ceremony was simple. No grand speeches had been planned, but Kael'thas found himself stepping forward, needing to speak. "Coordinator Chen, Captain Foster, people of Earth." His voice carried across the crowded hangar. "When you arrived, I believed you were our enemies. I believed accepting help was weakness. I believed the Vorath way was the only way. Strength through conquest, honor through victory, power through domination." He paused, looking at the faces around him. Human faces and Vorath faces mixed together. "I was wrong. You showed me what true strength is. Strength is not refusing help when you need it. Strength is offering help when someone else needs it, even if they are your enemy. Honor is not dying rather than accepting a hand up. Honor is extending your hand even knowing it might be rejected." Kael'thas's voice grew stronger. "You did not come to conquer. You did not come to mock our weakness. You came because we were dying and you could save us. You risked your lives. Some of you gave your lives for us, for Vorath who have been your enemies." He looked directly at Sarah. "I will carry this lesson back to the Vorath Empire. I will tell them what I learned here. That the measure of a civilization is not in its weapons or territory. It is in how it treats those who can offer nothing in return. It is in the courage to help even when helping is hard." Sarah stepped forward. "Commander, we did what anyone should do. What we hope others would do for us if we were the ones in need. That is exactly my point. The word should implies a standard. A moral expectation. The Vorath have not lived by that standard. Perhaps it is time we learn." The hangar erupted in applause from both species. Kael'thas clasped hands with Sarah in the human gesture of respect, then with Captain Diana, whose arm was still in a healing brace from the battle. Around the hangar, people said their goodbyes. Dr. James Okoro embraced several Vorath patients who had recovered under his care. Maria Santos and Miran exchanged contact information, promising to collaborate on engineering projects. David and Sortek played one final chess game, which ended in a draw, but the most emotional farewell was the quietest. The mother of Marcus Webb had come to the Nightingale, asking to meet the Vorath crew from the medical transport her son had saved. Now she stood before a group of wounded Vorath soldiers, some still bandaged, all alive because of Marcus's sacrifice. The Vorath did not know what to say. How did you thank someone's mother for their child's death? What words could possibly matter? Finally, a young Vorath female stepped forward. She had a bandaged arm and walked with a slight limp. "I was on that transport," she said softly. "I was injured, unconscious. I did not even know I was in danger. Your son, he saved me without knowing me, without asking if I deserved to be saved. He just saved me." Marcus's mother touched the young Vorath's face gently. "He would be happy to know you lived. That is who he was. I will remember him. We all will. His name will be honored among the Vorath. This I swear." When the Vorath fleet finally departed, human ships lined up in formation as an honor guard. The gesture was not lost on Kael'thas. Even in departure, the humans showed respect. The journey home took 12 days. During that time, Kael'thas prepared his report for the Vorath High Command. He knew what he had to say would cause controversy. The Empire did not change easily. Pride and tradition ran deep, but he would speak the truth anyway. His arrival was met with mixed reactions. The High Command was grateful the fleet had survived but deeply uncomfortable with how that survival had been achieved. Accepting help from humans, fighting alongside them, it challenged everything the Empire stood for. You should have died with honor rather than accept their charity, one admiral said bluntly during the debriefing. Kael'thas met his gaze steadily. And if I had, 23 ships and thousands of crew would be dead. For what? For pride? Pride that helps no one and saves nothing? Pride is what separates us from lesser species. No, pride is what prevents us from becoming better than we are. The debates raged for weeks. Hardliners insisted the rescue was a manipulation, that humans had ulterior motives. Reformers argued that this was an opportunity to reconsider the Empire's approach to other species. Mirren, who had requested a transfer to work with human scientific missions, became an unofficial ambassador. She spoke at universities, military academies, government forums. She showed the engineering innovations learned from humans. She told stories of cooperation and sacrifice. The humans have a saying, she told one audience. A rising tide lifts all boats. They believe that helping others helps themselves. That cooperation creates more prosperity than conquest. That is naive, a professor challenged. Is it? Their civilization has survived as long as ours. Their technology rivals ours. Their people are healthy, educated, creative. Perhaps naivety is just wisdom we do not yet understand. On Earth, the rescue operation became headline news. Some celebrated it as humanity's finest hour. Others questioned whether humans should risk lives for alien enemies. The debate was fierce but ultimately affirmed a core human value. When someone calls for help, you answer. Captain Diana Foster, promoted after the mission, gave an interview that captured the human perspective. People ask why we saved the Vorath. The answer is simple. Because they needed saving. We do not get to choose who deserves rescue based on their past. We choose based on their need in the moment. Otherwise, we become judges instead of rescuers. And the galaxy has enough judges already. 6 months after the rescue, an unexpected transmission arrived at the Terran Rescue Coordination Center. It was Commander Kael'thas. Coordinator Chen, I hope this message finds you well. I wanted to inform you of developments within the Vorath Empire. A reform faction has formed within the military and government. We are pushing for changes in how we treat other species, in how we approach diplomacy, in how we define strength and honor. He paused. It is slow. Many resist, but the seeds you planted are growing. You showed us a different way to be. Some of us are trying to learn that way. The message ended with a simple statement. Thank you. For everything. Sarah smiled as she listened. She knew the Vorath would not transform overnight. Change was hard. Old patterns died slowly. But change was possible. The humans had proved that with their own history. The real test came 9 months later. A human colony ship, the promise of tomorrow, suffered catastrophic engine failure in deep space. 2,000 colonists, including 500 children, sent desperate distress signals as their life support began to fail. The nearest human rescue ships were 3 weeks away, but there was a Vorath fleet only 4 days distant. Sarah Chen, now director of the Terran Rescue Service, watched the monitors anxiously. The distress signal had been broadcasting for 6 hours. No response from the Vorath. Then, just as hope began to fade, a message arrived. This is Commander Kael'thas of the Vorath fleet. We have received your distress call. We are en route at maximum speed. Hold on. Help is coming. When the Vorath ships arrived, they brought engineers, medical staff, supplies, and emergency equipment. They worked tirelessly to stabilize the colony ship. They transferred the most vulnerable humans to their own vessels. They treated injured colonists with the same care Dr. Okoro had shown to Vorath patients months before. A young human girl, rescued from a damaged section of the colony ship, looked up at the Vorath soldier carrying her to safety. Are you going to hurt me? She asked, afraid. The Vorath soldier held her gently. No, little one. I am going to save you, because that is what we do now. News of the Vorath rescue spread across human space like wildfire. People who had been skeptical of the aliens' capacity for change found themselves re-evaluating. Perhaps cooperation truly was possible. Perhaps old enemies could become new friends. Sarah Chen and Commander Keltis spoke via long-range communication after the colony ship was safe. "You came," Sarah said, emotion thick in her voice. "Of course we came. You taught us that when someone calls for help, you answer. We are slow learners, but we do learn. This changes things between our peoples." "Yes, it does. But change is good. Necessary. The galaxy is too dangerous for us to face as enemies. Better we face it as allies," Sarah nodded. "I agree. So what happens now?" Keltis smiled, an expression that looked strange on Vorath features but genuine nonetheless. "Now we continue learning. Continue helping. Continue trying to be worthy of the example you set." Across the galaxy, other civilizations watched the growing human-Vorath cooperation with interest. Some saw opportunity, others saw threat, but all recognized that something significant had shifted. Two species, once enemies, now demonstrated that change was possible, that old wounds could heal, that choosing cooperation over conquest was not weakness but wisdom. In the Terran Rescue Coordination Center, a new protocol was added to the Standard Operations Manual. It was simple, just a few lines.